Diamonds, the most romantic and fascinating of all the gems in the world. For hundreds of years, men have fought over them, collected them, and given them as symbols of affection as undying as the gems themselves. But none of the great diamonds of romance blazes with as bright a fire as these diamonds of modern cut, which men still choose as the most superb of all gems to mark a great occasion or symbolize a great love. And although I've been handling them since I was 15, they still thrill me like no other stone. Just look at this classic diamond crystal. It's a bit off color, of course, or it would be worth a fortune. This is a cleavage, a stone broken by nature during its millions of years of existence. It comes from Africa, like most stones these days. In this case, South Africa, I would say. This is obviously a Tanganyika stone. And this probably is a premier. Now here's an interesting stone, Indian by the look of it. Few diamonds are found there now, but it was the source of almost all the famous diamonds of history. In 17th century India, man wore the jewels. From this old Mughal miniature, you can see what a colorful creature he was. Small stones mounted in this fashion, no doubt he gave away to some favorite wife or other. The large diamonds he kept to wear himself. But in the Europe of Louis XV, tastes were different, and a lady of the court would be ablaze with superb jewels. A 19th century beauty, preparing perhaps for a ball at Londonderry House, was no less magnificent. While the jewels of an Edwardian lady of fashion were as splendid as any. Today's greater informality demands a less opulent look, but modern jewellery, lovelier than ever, remains the supreme gift for every woman on the great occasions in her life. London is the centre of the diamond world, and millions of pounds worth of these oddly beautiful pebbles from the volcanic pipes and diamond-bearing gravels of Africa pour into the sorting rooms. Even in the rough, they hint at 1,000 hidden fires. Seeing diamonds in this quantity, one can forget how sparse they really are in even the richest mines. Swept by the icy currents of the Atlantic, these desolate sands of southwest Africa cover one of the richest alluvial diamond fields in the world. But despite their richness, men and giant machines must sweat and strain and shift some 45,000 tons of sand and gravel for each pound's weight of gems from the ancient seabed beneath the desert. Millions of years ago, the land was writhing in the grip of huge volcanoes. Molecules of carbon, subjected to enormous heat and pressure, formed diamonds. And in the fabulous volcanic pipes of South Africa, the diamonds still lie where they were formed. To be blasted by man from their primeval resting places in the famous blue ground. from each 500 tons of rock are produced just this, 1 single ounce of diamonds included in this parcel from the famous Premier mine. In the sorting rooms of the Central Selling Organization in London, as well as in Kimberley and Johannesburg, deft fingers and eyes with an uncanny sense of color sort the rough stones by size and hue, purity and shape. These are first-grade gems of flawless whiteness, fit to grace a princess. These have a yellow cast, which may reduce their value, but hardly affects their beauty. While these stones will help to speed industry on its way. They're real diamonds, but not gem quality, so they'll never grace a coronet. But this drilling crown uses them to great effect. For wherever hardness and precision are vital, there you'll find diamonds at work. These are gemstones of under 1 carat, but they're sorted by color and quality with the same care and delicacy as the larger stones. By now, buyers will have been asked their requirements, so the stones are made up in parcels, each containing about the same proportion of diamonds of different sizes and qualities. These particular stones are very fine. Buyers are then invited to see their parcels at the sights, as they are called, which are held every month in London. At a sight, expertise is at a premium. Buyers consider color, shape, and the position of any flaws or spots. They plan the most economical way to cut the stones and watch out for glatzen. A diamond with a glatz in it, like this one, may disintegrate during sawing, an expensive misfortune. Sometimes a buyer may be found brooding over a specially large stone. I've considered one like this for days on end before making up my mind about it. As it's worth about £24,000, a little fortune hangs on one's judgment. With diamonds, one can't afford to be wrong too often. Diamonds are the hardest stones in the world, so the ancients could only rub them roughly into shape with another diamond. But the softer stones have been cut for untold centuries, as in this delightful Greek gold and cornelian necklace of about 300 BC. The Romans faceted the amethyst beads of this necklace 600 years later. Byzantine craftsmen carved this exquisite amethyst cameo 1,000 years ago. But the crude facets of this 16th century diamond date before Louis de Berchem of Bruges revolutionized gem cutting. This early 17th century Spanish piece shows his influence. This is the famous jewel of the Order of the Garter, given by Queen Anne to the great Duke of Marlborough. Studied with over 150 stones, it's fascinating to see the difference between these diamonds, cut in 1700, before Vincenzo Peruzzi designed the brilliant cut, and this magnificent 18th century stone cut in the new fashion. It's set in the Spanish jewel of the Order of the Golden Fleece, given to the first Duke of Wellington. And this superb golden diamond is in the same jewel. Now let's assume that we're to have a diamond brilliant cut, starting from this model of a perfect octahedral crystal. First, something less than half is sawn off to form the table. Next, the crystal is bruted or rounded, forming the girdle. Then the bezels are cut above the girdle and the pavilions below it. At this stage, the stone is called forecut. Dividing the cut faces then continues until all the 58 facets of a brilliant have been cut. Peruzzi designed this cut scientifically to reflect back to the eye almost all the light entering the stone through the table. With the stone reversed, less light is reflected, so the brilliance dies. Here, an expert is examining a diamond with a flaw in it. As the flaw lies along the grain of the stone, he decides to mark it up for cleaving. The cleaver, with a sharp-edged diamond chip, files a tiny notch in the place of cleavage. You can just see it at the top of the stone. Into the notch goes the wedge. There's a breathless pause, and the stone splits cleanly in two. Sawing is used instead of cleaving if a stone has to be cut across the grain. The saws are paper-thin bronze discs smeared with oil and diamond dust, revolving at high speed. Even so, sawing through a diamond this size takes many hours. After sawing, the corners of the stone are bruted on a lathe, the cutting tool being another diamond, which is itself being bruted. Next, the facets are cut, just as they have been for hundreds of years, on a porous metal wheel impregnated with diamond dust and oil. This stone has been forecut, the last bezel having just been completed, and the cutter will continue to subdivide the facets until all 58 have been finished. The craft calls for exceptional skill. This man told me that after 36 years as a cutter, he was still learning, because no two diamonds are exactly the same. At last, all the facets have been finished, and the stone's brilliant fire unleashed. Amid this glittering heap of 1-carat brilliance, flashes a perfect 8-carat stone. But even these tiny brilliants, weighing only 1/10 of a carat, have all their 58 facets. You'll notice that any stones which are reversed look quite lifeless. Diamonds can also be emerald cut, though they lose some fire. This 6-carat stone is a perfect color. Diamonds can be pear-shaped, marquise, or square cut. But of them all, I like the brilliant best. Many of us in diamonds get around to collecting colored stones at one time or another. We call them fancies. They look most attractive in the rough. And when they're cut, some of them are quite lovely. Fancies are really a specialized interest, I suppose, but the great historic diamonds thrill everyone. Here is a model of the fabulous Cullinan diamond. Weighing 3,106 carats, this enormous gem was torn from the blue ground of the Premier Mine in 1905. Presented to King Edward VII by the Transvaal government, it was cut into over 100 stones. These are reproductions of some of the biggest, including Cullinan I, the largest diamond in the world, which blazes in Her Majesty's scepter. My favorite historic diamond is the Sancy. Brought from Turkey to France in the late 16th century, this magnificent gem passed through the hands of the French kings Henry III and IV, treasury during the French Revolution a century later. Reappearing after a few years, the Sancy passed through Spanish, Russian, Indian, and English ownership, and now adds its exquisite beauty to the collection of Lord Astor. With historic gems like this, the setting, of course, is designed to enhance the stone itself. But jewellery in general is evolved from artistic designs which are attractive purely as designs, without being concerned with specific stones. For instance, only small diamonds will be used in this charming bracelet watch, which will appeal by its elegance and the beauty of its hand craftsmanship in platinum. A final critical look, and one more charming example of modern design linked with old world craftsmanship is ready to pass on to a jeweller's shop, to await the moment when it will become some man's greatest gift and some woman's most cherished possession. And this perhaps will be the day, the anniversary, when it will be chosen from among its glittering rivals and become maybe an heirloom. Everywhere in the world, a diamond forms the perfect heirloom, whose fire age cannot quench, the perfect token which use cannot dim, token of remembrance, or happiness, or affection. All the world loves a lover. Cecil Rhodes once said, "Every engagement means a diamond," and this remains forever the most romantic use of the most romantic and beautiful of all gems.